Welcome back to the Industrial Automation Insider podcast series. My name is Matt Van Bogart, and I'm a Senior Business Development Manager at Zebra. Today, I'm really excited to be talking with Alex Whiting, the founder of MyTech, about the role of industrial automation technologies in some very specific reverse logistics applications. This podcast is being recorded at the beginning of 2024. And now that we're into what we call peak returns season, I'm sure that there are many of you recognizing areas where you could improve the reverse logistics process in your business, especially if products are being sent back to a warehouse for restocking, redistribution, etc. Then again, you may just be focused on recovering reusable packaging supplies, bins, totes, pallets, other tools that are used in your processes that hit your bottom line. So now that we've had an opportunity to kind of set the stage for this conversation, I want to thank Alex for spending time with us today, sharing a little bit about his business, his background, and various areas of expertise. Alex, welcome to the Industrial Automation Insider podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. Excited to have a chat with you around automation and reverse logistics in particular. It's an area we spend a lot of time on here at MyTech and with our customers. So happy to sit and talk about that and hopefully share some insight.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it's interesting because the term peak season really wasn't a thing, maybe even a decade ago. And I think obviously the Amazons of the world and online buying and e-commerce has driven the concept around peak and what that means for certain markets, and certainly the reverse logistics side of that is probably as complex, if not more complex, than the peak side. So here we are in the beginning parts of 2024 talking about some of these use cases, etc. So it feels like there's been a significant focus on improving fulfillment operations over the course of maybe like the last 5 or so years.
Yeah.
COVID has accelerated the demand on supply chains. However, to your point, we're starting to see some more discussion around reverse logistics, etc. What are you seeing in the market in terms of demand? Are you seeing more demand for your solutions? Is it somewhat stabilizing? Or are you seeing even more opportunities for companies to focus on their reverse logistics applications?
Yeah, I think first of all, I've been in the industry here for over 20 years now, and you're right. We saw peak as probably Christmas for most retailers or logistics companies linked to those retailers. I would say now that retailers have got a broader product line, so they're selling different things. Therefore, it's peak for different reasons throughout the year, depending on the department. I think I've also seen in our marketplace, I worked in organizations where it was mobile computing and it was tablets and it was data capture scanning through barcodes. And we set MyTech up 3 or 4 years ago now to look at the next level of that, or the next journey forward step. So RFID, automated data capture, those sorts of things. And I think that one of the things that COVID did have an impact on was the need for end users, customers, and our customers, the supply chain and retailers, to speed up their roadmap to get more automated with how they're capturing data, or get technology in place that allowed them to automate some of the data they want to capture, whether it was a menu at a restaurant, or the way that you order in a store, or the way you collect in a store, or the way orders are fulfilled. So I think that the last 2 or 3 years for us, the timing's been good, because we've seen customers say, I need to move that extra step forward. I need to think about automation now, because actually my customers were probably asking for it pre-COVID, but
Hmm.
now it's kind of a given. And we had this 15 years ago. We used to fill in tenders for with logistics companies, and proof of delivery was something you were asked, could you do? And
Hmm.
two
Yeah.
2 or 3 years later, it was a prerequisite because the
Yeah.
retailers were asking for it, because the customer was asking for it. So I think we find that now. I think we find there are certain demands that a customer is putting on that supply chain that means that we've got to have the technology to be able to deliver on that end customer
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about proof of delivery because as I'm sitting in my home office, the window to my left looks directly at my front door. And every
Yeah.
time a, a box is delivered by any number of carriers here in North America, I always look over and see him taking a picture of the box on my doorstep. So that's great. So a couple things that I want to kind of maybe dig into based upon what you just said is, okay, so maybe this is a two-part question. First part is, what is the role of the workforce having on your customers in terms of, hard to hire, not enough people to fulfill jobs? And then as an add-on, how is that driving the adoption of industrial automation technologies? And what are the types of maybe use cases that you're seeing uh, customers adopting based upon either their workflows or lack of labor?
Yeah, I think it's not only lack of labour, I think it's choice for people. So you've got to be able to scale in those peak periods,
Mm,
um, scale up and scale back down. So having solutions that are easy to use or automated, or just a little bit more automated than they were
mhm,
before. So, I was 15 screens, I'm now 5, or I'm using a robot to do the walking between the picking areas and I'm just picking
mhm,
all day, or I'm using RFID to ensure I've got the right stock to fulfill those orders. If not, I'm moving those orders to another
mhm.
store or another location. I think automation plays a part in creating the availability of stock or of items. And then I think we still use people to fulfill some of that, but they've got the technology to support them. So perhaps they're happier. It's a happier work life. It's a happier role that they're in. That probably improves retention.
Sure.
So, hard to hire and hard to keep.
Mhm,
I think technology plays a role in those areas where it is hard to hire, because you can sometimes use technology to fill those gaps. But it certainly plays a role in customer retention, or sorry, employee retention and
mhm.
improved customer service. And so therefore probably customer retention as well. And as consumers, we'll buy from everywhere. But once we get a couple of good experiences, we
Mhm.
might stick with what we know, stick with what's easy. So buy goods, return them, get your money back quickly, go somewhere else, buy them again. We want that ability to be able to shop around without having our money tied up. And our money is often tied up because the goods are still tied up
Yeah.
waiting for a refund. So I think to answer your first question, what role does a workforce or a hard to hire workforce have in automation? Yeah, for sure, it sped things up. People know that they've got to have technology in place um, to cover those gaps, or to allow them to grow quicker than they plan to.
Mhm.
Um, how does it? How's the adoption going? I think the people you're hiring are getting used to. We're in a generation now where they're getting used to technology, so it's kind of like, why haven't you got it? The last place I was at did have it, or
Oh, sure. Yeah.
yeah, the last place I was shopping captured that data. So I think there's a bit of that as well. I think there are leaders and laggers, but
Mhm.
there's less laggers, and everyone's in this middle ground where they're adopting the bits. Now here at MyTech, we talk a bit about looking at the whole problem end to end and spotting where the quick wins are. So how can you adopt technology with the least amount of hassle, maybe the lowest amount of spend, but the maximum amount of return? Where are those quick wins but equally, what does the journey look like? We want to take you on a 3 or 4 year journey. We see that with a lot of the technology that Zebra provide. You start with a barcode and you get into RFID, and then you finish with machine vision. I think those three, if you line them up on a production line, on a supply chain, you'd use them all on that journey for returns or for picking and shipping or whatever. So I think our customers are able to look at all of those technologies and pick what they want to make quick improvements, rather than big bang, how do I improve something, and it taking 2 years to do it.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Good. So you mentioned machine vision here a couple minutes ago. Are you seeing interest in machine vision for quality inspection or for certain aspects of returns, or are you still seeing a heavy reliance on people to manage that process?
I think a mix of both, depending on what the product is. I think machine vision and RFID technologies are really handy to help customers know that the goods are back in the building, so they could be resold, so they could be restocked, so they could be reused. I think the inspection part, machine vision, it's hugely impactful on that. But the adoption of that, that's next in the step. I feel like that's coming. That there are some people doing it, and I would say that manufacturing, it's going to be one of those areas where you get a big win out of doing it. But in retail or logistics, perhaps that visual inspection is still there on returns, maybe because of the volume of returns, or maybe because of the simplicity of what's being returned. So I think fixed scanning, RFID, really important to speed up that returns process to start with. Machine vision, I think that's coming. We would see more machine vision happening maybe in the front end, the retail end, where you're looking at age verification, or you're looking at speeding up what might happen at a self-checkout and things like that. But it's certainly coming into automation.
Sure. Yeah, so what are the biggest pain points you're solving for your customers in the reverse logistics area now? Are you seeing them having to re-engineer processes to accommodate technology, or is the technology facilitating new and more efficient ways of your customers handling various aspects of their returns?
Yeah, I think both. I think the biggest thing that we spend our time on is asset visibility. Okay. So, what have I got? What's gone out? What's coming back? What can I use? What can't I use? What's the state of it? So I think that technology does solve those issues, but you do need to re-engineer some of your processes to make sure that they are being used well. It's not tech for tech's sake. Sure. It's tech because it makes sense. So yeah, I think people are looking at their processes or looking at their profitability and thinking, where can I use technology quickly or in the most efficient way to solve the majority of the problem? And returns for me is definitely one of those. The ability to see what's available and not overorder or overstock is huge. It helps helps drive that sustainability within a business. It helps drive that kind of reusing and recycling in a business. I think it's a massive part of what a business wants to achieve. So Zebra is certainly driving technology trends that allow people to be more sustainable and think about those areas of their business.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit, possibly change direction slightly, and talk a little bit about various technologies and return on investment. Do you have any recommendations on what customers should be looking at in terms of first steps down their journey of adopting either RFID or fixed scanning, a couple things that you mentioned here recently. Are there specific things that you can point to that are absolutely low-hanging fruit when it comes to adopting new technology, improving processes, providing better customer satisfaction that leads to a faster or greater return on investment?
Yeah, we talk to a lot of customers about loss. I've lost something, can't
Sure.
find something, can't view it. And I think that's one of the biggest pain points for anybody of any size, really. Even we have it as a small business. What have I got and where is it?
Mhm.
And, I'd say over the last 10 years, I've heard some stories of, retailers on their website saying, setting the bar so high to the amount of stock they've got before they say out of stock, and making sure they've got enough items in their supply chain because they don't want to miss out on that sale. So the ability to be able to see what you've got, use it wisely, is huge. So there's a big return on investment there because you're potentially buying less. I think staff retention and satisfaction is
Mhm.
important. It
Mhm.
costs a lot of money to hire the right people and keep the right people. So I think
Good point.
that's an area where technology used in the right way, that's been, I guess, the advice has been given from the users on it, can really, really drive more retention and in the end a better service. And yeah, I think maybe in the end, um, you know, we talk a lot about reordering, customers reordering. Are they coming back or are they shopping around? If you get an average experience, you probably shop around because it was
Yes.
about price.
Yes.
If you get a good experience, you're probably happy to pay $1 more or pound more for something because it was easy and it worked.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think maybe 10 or 15 years ago, the perspective of the consumer, or maybe even the retailers themselves, would be, that online buying, e-commerce would be the great leveler of the customer experience. And I think what I've recognized is that I've become as loyal to particular brands that I've purchased from online primarily because of their service, because of the flexibility that they have, their delivery times, etc. And so, I've found different ways to separate my online retail experience than my walk-in store retail experience. I may
Yeah,
have been loyal to a brand, 15 years ago because of the experience that I got inside the store. And I think the perception years ago was like, well, that all goes away, and consumers only want to buy from the cheapest website that they can find something from. And the reality is that that's not true. I think I,
no,
I
no,
think
it's not.
consumers will pay for convenience, and they'll pay for items in stock, even if they could find a cheaper price someplace else that may have a week delayed delivery time. And so I think retailers and brands need to have this perception that the shift in consumer thinking has definitely changed. And there are things that retailers can do for online purchases and buyers to create that type of loyalty. And I think Alex, this goes into our entire conversation that that on this particular topic, reverse logistics, the better, easier, faster, less frictionless way of providing that experience to a customer actually helps create some of that loyalty.
I think so. Yeah, I was going to say that. I think that we go out less and try clothes on, as an example, in store, but then you find a pair of jeans that fit. Um, Now you probably got to buy three pairs because you're between sizes, depending on for me anyway, depending on
Yeah.
the season,
Yeah.
three ways. So I think you don't want to buy one, you got to buy two sizes. So you check the returns process, you check if it's easy. You don't want your money tied up. So there are other solutions that are out there so that they don't tie
Yeah.
your money up or it's returned. So you're always looking for a retailer that lets you order five things, lets you return three things, gets to you next day, gets you money back the same day. All of that is huge. And yeah, I think you then find, because of the amount of places to buy, it's less about price. Everybody's selling it at the
Yeah.
same price, right? If there's a sale over here within an hour, everyone's got it on sale, or there's price match or whatever. The buyers have become smart to that. It's about service.
Yeah, yeah. And just to add to this is, I purchased something for myself, a piece of outerwear for the wintertime, and I purchased it from a premium direct to consumer brand. And one of the things that I recognized, noticed when I got the package in the mail and was looking at the invoice for the packing slip, is that they did two things that I thought was very interesting. One is, if your return is for a size variance, there was no cost for the return process. And another thing that they did, which I thought was interesting, is that they took the regular return period from 30 days, extended it to 90 days because the product was purchased in the month of December. And so
Right.
there are small things retailers and brands can do to build that loyalty, to also make the process easier for their customers. Because I'm guessing and assuming the reason why this brand pushed out the return period from 30 to 90 days was to provide a value to the customer, but also not impact their reverse logistics by contracting the amount of time
Yeah.
that the customers have to return products of 30 days, which means their month of January, they may be inundated with returns and exchanges. By allowing a little bit more flexibility, probably helps them uh, uh, deal with the inbound that comes back during return. So there are small things that the brands can do
Yeah.
on top of the technology investment that can lead to that better experience, not only for their customers but also for their employees and for their business.
Yeah, and maybe like me, you keep it knowing, thinking you'll fit into it in 90 days, and actually you
Yeah,
just go out and run more and make sure that
that's
you
right.
don't have to send it back.
That's
That's
right.
what
That's
most
right.
guys would do. You have three
That's right.
sizes of everything. Yeah, I completely agree. I think technology helps improve that reverse logistic process in
Hmm.
the end,
Hmm.
which means you get a better experience, and you shop elsewhere.
Yeah.
Although I do see a lot of retailers now using 3PLs to do that. Certainly in the UK, more 3PLs
Yep.
are having to provide these services. It's a bit like 15 years ago. Do you do proof of delivery? Yeah, I do. Okay, 5 years ago, do you do reverse logistics? Yeah, I do. Now it's, do you do same day reverse logistics? How are you giving the money back to our customers? How do we get visibility quicker? So you can see it all speeding up and improving the customer experience.
Fantastic. Any closing thoughts for you, Alex, on kind of the future of what this technology holds, and what the next 3 years might look like?
Yeah, we encourage our customers to have a vision for 3 years, but not get decision
Mm-hmm.
paralysis by trying to do the big things first. Break it down into bite-sized chunks. Look at some areas where you can implement technology, but you thought about how it could help the business later on. As an example, Zebra will do a product that is RFID ready and non-RFID ready. We encourage our customers to take the RFID ready computer so that they can look later on down the line at those other products. So have a think about what you're doing. Make sure your decisions today have got tomorrow and the day after tomorrow involved in them, and don't try and do it all at once.
Excellent. Well, let's bring this thing to a close. Alex Whiting from MyTech, again, thank you very much for joining me today. For those of you that are listening to this podcast, Alex will be back in a few weeks to talk a little bit more about RFID technology and how it can be used throughout a product's life cycle to maintain accountability and even support a circular economy model. So look forward to that conversation here in the next few weeks, Alex. Thank you. again for joining the Industrial Automation Insider podcast. There are more episodes coming this year. If you are interested in getting on this podcast, and this is actually how Alex got on this podcast, is reach out to me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn at Matt Van Bogart. You'll be able to find me. And if you have some interesting topics that you want to bring to this conversation to share with the world, please feel free to reach out and contact me. So Matt Van Bogart signing off from Zebra. Thank you very much.